Hello, my name is Patrick Vaughn, and my presentation is called After the Game is Over. My complex problem asks the question, what should be done with America's empty golf courses as the sport's popularity continues to decline? It's a huge amount of land that we're talking about, so I think it's worth exploring some of the ideas that are on the table. This might seem kind of trivial to someone who isn't directly affected by this, but it's actually happening all across the country, and I wasn't aware of the issue until it became a problem in my own community. There are several options on the table, which I noted here on this slide. Essentially, the problem stems from the fact that golf is a dying sport. There are plenty of statistics to back this up. According to the National Golf Foundation, golf course closures have outnumbered openings since 2006. Michael P. Schmidt's peer-reviewed article Beyond the Green, the legal land use controls involved with golf course closures, talks about how the sport surged in the late 80s, and for about 20 years it had its heyday, but that ended in the 2000s. Schmidt describes how the sport is, quote, falling victim to a mismatch in supply and demand between venues for play and willing players. In addition to losing popularity, golf is only getting more expensive and becoming more of a drain on resources. All of these factors mean communities with lots of golf courses need to start thinking about how they're going to repurpose that land. Which brings me to Palm Springs, California, where there are 9 golf courses in this town and 91 more golf courses within 20 miles. In a resort town like this, where tourism is the main industry, many citizens believe the economy and housing prices depend on the sport of golf. This isn't entirely wrong, as noted in John L. Crompton and Sarah Nichols' peer-reviewed article, The Impact on Property Values of Golf Courses in the United States, from the Journal of Park and Recreation Administration. They state that, quote, in recent years, the closure rate of courses has been approximately 200 a year, resulting in potential substantial losses in property values for residents who have paid a premium to reside in proximate locations to them, end quote. They also note, as you can see on this slide, that the problem is not unique to the United States. There are some statistics here. So how exactly is the audience that I'm talking about affected by the complex problem that I'm talking about? Well, as I mentioned, one of the primary concerns of the citizens of Palm Springs is their property values. Recently, the Homeowners Association of the Mesquite Golf and Country Club got an injunction against the Oswett Land Trust to stop them from turning the closed Mesquite Golf Course into a nature preserve. They claimed a lease agreement with the former golf course owner forbids them from making major changes to the golf course without first negotiating with the HOA. Mark Talkington's recent article in the Palm Springs Post talks about that lawsuit. You can see that I quoted that on this slide, so I won't read it to you. Speaking of the Oswett Land Trust, though, since they just came up, let's talk a little bit about them. The Oswett Land Trust, or OLT, is a nonprofit land trust based in Palm Springs, California, which focuses on buying closed golf courses and transforming them into publicly accessible nature preserves. OLT's website, which is seen here, is multimodal and immediately presents their mission of saving 1 acre at a time. Saving wildlife 1 acre at a time, According to their site, OLT's mission goes beyond restoring neglected golf courses. They also do educational outreach and attempt to protect farmland through conservation easements. So did you know that this is actually a thing? As I mentioned earlier, what's happening with the Mesquite Golf Course in Palm Springs isn't incredibly unique, and actually what Oswett Land Trust is attempting to do is also similar to what's happening all over the country. In this slide here, I point out a few examples. There's an Audubon magazine article by Susan Cozier called Bye Bye Golf Courses, Hello Nature Preserves, which makes a lot of great points. She discusses the Ocean Meadows Golf Club in Goleta, California, which is undergoing an ecological restoration. as well as 6 other projects in the US in which golf courses were successfully converted into parks and nature preserves. Save PS Golf. These are the signs that inspired this presentation for me. So the people who are trying to stop the land trust have framed their argument with the slogan Save Palm Springs Golf, because they're saying that they are basically anti-anything other than a golf course. And as I've pointed out in this presentation, golf is a dying sport, so at some point something is going to have to be done, and these folks are going to have to choose between commercial development or a nature preserve. They also aren't taking into account that there are a majority of us who don't golf. On the previous slide, I noted 2 examples in Denver and Wichita where golf courses were sold for development to benefit the community. The mayor of Wichita even noted that a park would be so much more valuable to the community than a golf course. So when it comes to Save Palm Springs Golf and that whole argument, I think it's very flimsy when you really dig into it. Furthermore, the chemicals used on golf courses are incredibly harmful, as I put here on this slide. So the status quo just isn't going to cut it anymore. The argument here seems to be let's keep everything the same, and it's just not possible to do that anymore. So who is this city actually for? There is an ethical question which doesn't seem to get much attention, and it's in the title of an interesting peer-reviewed article. Who is this city for? This is in the International Journal of Sport Policy and Politics. It goes to the Wichita mayor's comments that I was talking about earlier on the previous slide about what's really useful for citizens, an exclusive golf course or a public park. This article frames the discussion in 3 ways, which I broke down for you on this slide. As you can see, the frames are access and equity, environmental, and economic. If I'm basing my opinion personally on these 3 frameworks, which I think makes sense, then the solution to me is clear. I think the Oswald Land Trust has presented the most sensible option for the community, and we should support their efforts to preserve these lands rather than create unnecessary legal hurdles. These are tactics which actually play right into the hands of profit-minded corporate developers, I think. On this slide, I put some statistics which were provided on the Oswald Land Trust website about what they've accomplished. And it shows that they've already done this with 5 properties, so I feel that they're trustworthy in that regard. Let's see. In conclusion, I think the glory days of golf are over, like it or not, and it's time to move forward. While I appreciate the passion of all the sides of the argument, I think we need to support the Oswald Land Trust. If you're an opponent, I think you need to look at them as the devil you know, not the devil you don't, because I think the alternatives could be much worse than a beautiful nature preserve. If you're a concerned member of the community, I would urge you to get involved with OLT and volunteer, or just visit the hiking trails in nearby Oswald Canyon and see the possibilities for yourselves. And here are my works cited, my resources. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.